Do we want school resource officers back or SROs? Well, after that shooting in Colorado, yes, we do. Tonight, you're going to hear from the former principal who supports the SROs coming back just days after that Colorado shooting. Take a look.
The community continues to grapple with youth gun violence and school shootings. Tonight we are hearing from the former principal of Columbine High School, Frank DeAngelis, offering his perspective, speaking with Fox 31's Talia Cunningham tonight. Talia.
Well, Jeremy, as we know, it's a perspective that's held in high regard because it's a reality he knows all too well. Frank telling me tonight, when he heard the news about East High, his heart sank and he thought, here we go again.
Wednesday's double shooting at East High brings back painful memories for Frank DeAngelis.
To be honest with you, I have flashbacks to that horrific day at Columbine.
April 20th, 1999. Two students went on a shooting spree, killing 13 people, injuring more than 20 at Columbine High School. DeAngelis was a school principal.
It's heartbreaking knowing that it continues to happen, and what can we do?
At the time, Columbine was the worst high school shooting in U.S. history and prompted a nationwide debate on school safety and gun control. Fast forward 24 years, and the debate continues. Following recent violence at East High, resulting in the death of 2 students and shooting of 2 administrators, the district has decided to put school resource officers back into hallways.
I think it's so important, their presence.
A move DeAngelis says is for the best.
I'm a strong proponent, and I want to applaud now the Denver School Board because they are going to put police officers back.
The former principal shared SROs were at Columbine the day of the shooting, and although it didn't prevent it, it allowed for immediate action. But also, he says their presence wasn't about discipline.
It's all about relationships. And the police officers, the SROs we had, were part of our staff. They went to games, they went to dances, they were in the cafeteria.
He also thinks more mental health resources are needed.
There are kids that are crying out for help. We need to provide that help.
DeAngelis helped form this network, made up of former and current school principals impacted by gun tragedies, and says through everyone's story, there's not one solution to fix the issue, but making sure students feel safe and supported is the right step.
And he also says that social media plays a bigger role now than, of course, it did back in 1999, and we should not underestimate the role students play, encouraging them to report anything that makes them feel a little uneasy. So we know here in Colorado, students can anonymously report Safe to Tell. You can call this number or you can use this online for. In studio tonight, Talia Cunningham, Fox 31.
Now there is hope out there. Remember, they got rid of those SROs because of cutback, probably because of cutbacks. But if they had school resource officers today, we wouldn't be having any of this. We're not talking about a school-to-prison pipeline. We're just basically focusing on school safety. It's just not what's being talked about these days because a lot of times people get me looking into something like this and me thinking it's not going to work because so-and-so blah, blah, blah. But I kind of feel like it's a great idea to have school resource officers back. So, I guess you could say, what do we need to do? What we need to do is to make sure that safety is number one priority. So, if you're looking into school safety, you need to find safer schools. Sorry guys, this is what's driving me crazy. There we go. Take a look at this.
Reaches the midway point of its 88th legislative session, Texas lawmakers continue to engage on the topic of education. Among the dozens of proposals are a school choice voucher system, arming teachers, and teacher pay raises.
But as 3 News anchor Mike Gillespie shows us, there is still one issue that stands above the rest, and he joins us now with that report. Mike?
You know, on Monday, the House is going to take up the debate on perhaps the biggest item facing lawmakers this session, that of school security. It is an aspect of education that has been at the forefront since the tragedy at Robb Elementary in Uvalde last year. But even this week, we've seen back-to-back shootings at high schools in Arlington and in Dallas. Now, House Bill 3 would require school districts to have a minimum of 1 armed security officer on each of the state's 26,000 public school campuses during regular school hours. But, as reporter and political analyst Jason Whiteley tells us, some are wondering whether that bill goes far enough.
It's great to have a police officer there, but remember, 376 officers showed up to Uvalde last May, and it took them more than an hour to actually engage the suspect, who had the same firepower that the police officers did.
HB 3 would also allocate a minimum of $15,000 to each campus every year for school safety measures. Behind property tax relief, this bill is the most important on House Speaker Dade Phelan's list of priorities. They'll take up the debate in Austin Monday afternoon at 2. Leslie?
All right, Mike. Thank you so much.
So maybe then we could see what happened. What happens? You ever heard the term a puppy mill? Come up next. You're about to meet some people who bought a dog from a store. Probably a bad idea. Some experts are going to weigh in, and you will also see these puppy mills in action. Chris Hansen with a Dateline investigation, hidden camera investigation, I should say. Stay with us. It's a multi-million-dollar industry driven by puppy love. At these days, every pet is adorable. But buyer beware. Millions of us Americans have fallen in love with puppies in pet store windows. Tonight, you're going to see a different side of the business that may leave you speechless. And what you see has nothing to do with love. Here's Chris Hansen.
You see them in almost every shopping mall in America. You can hear the yips and barks 3 stores away. And once in front of the pet store, the doggie in the window is often hard to resist. You've probably been in one of these stores, at least to look at the tail-wagging furry bundles begging you to buy them. You may have even bought your dog there. After all, where else but a pet store? You find so many different breeds all in one place. Everything from a peppy pocket-sized poodle to a beefy little bulldog.
Yeah, we just fell in love with her.
When Carrie Carney and Pete Tunkey went into their local pet store, it took only minutes to bond with a 9-week-old Alaskan Malamute. But the couple wasn't blinded by love. For $550, they wanted to know the puppy came with purebred papers and was from a reputable breeder.
He made it sound like she came in her little station wagon with the puppy in the back seat of the car.
The pet store even recommended a veterinarian who gave the dog they named Bella a clean bill of health.
We thought that, that she's going to be perfectly healthy and just, this sweet, wonderful dog because she came from a breeder. Bella!
But hundreds of dollars in vet bills began mounting almost immediately. Chronic diarrhea, a persistent urinary tract infection. Then, when Bella was just 6 months old, she started to run with a hop, sort of like a rabbit. It was hip dysplasia, an often hereditary and painful joint disorder. And as if that weren't enough, despite her official purebred papers and price tag, Carrie and Pete say they got another surprise.
She said, now I'm mine.
Bella wasn't even the purebred they'd been promised. Coupled with her mounting health problems, they began to worry that despite pet store promises, Bella may be the product of careless breeding.
If you ignore the fact that she's an animal, you would return her. You take her back and say, this isn't what I bought.
It was the option the pet store offered.
He said, well, just bring her back and get a new dog. This was months later. We'd already become attached. I mean, once you have a dog in your house, he's your little baby.
Carrie and Pete's pet store experience is not unique. Many pet owners have no idea where their puppy started its life. Our 10-month Dateline investigation examined the commercial dog breeding system in the U.S., how pet stores keep all those different breeds of puppies in stock at any given time. Who's breeding all these tens of thousands of puppies? And if anyone is inspecting the facilities or making sure that the dogs are in fact purebred? We found a commercial breeding industry that perpetuates cruel conditions for the breeding dogs and can result in puppies with health and behavior problems. We began our hidden camera investigation as shoppers at the largest puppy-selling pet store chain in the U.S., Petland. How big will that dog get? We visited 3 Petland stores in Ohio and were greeted by a friendly staff who seemed to love the puppies they were selling. And there was lots to make the customer feel comfortable. For starters, their brochure says Petland puppies must meet rigorous standards before they can become Petland puppies. And we were told about Petland's health warranty.
We guarantee the health for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Then we also give a year guarantee against congenital and hereditary diseases.
And Petland stores we visited assured us they only use reputable breeders.
The people who own the store check out the breeders?
Oh yeah. They've actually traveled, visitors far away. They sit and check certain places where the dogs go.
They actually inspect them?
Yeah, they go and check them out, and we've gotten rid of some places because we didn't like what we seen.
And another guarantee. All their breeders are inspected by the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
We only buy from USDA licensed breeders.
Yeah. So the USDA, they actually keep an eye on this stuff?
Yes.
So that means something.
They actually go to the breeders, check records, they will pull their license, revoke them.
These places have to be inspected.
Right. Yes, have to be.
These puppies don't come cheap. Anywhere from several hundred to $2,000. But for that price, pet stores sell even more. Most of their purebred puppies are registered, most often with the elite of dog registries, the American Kennel Club. The AKC is the world-acclaimed nonprofit organization well known for its high-end dog shows. It also funds canine health research. And when pet stores sell puppies, some suggest the AKC is a virtual puppy seal of approval.
We check all my paperwork and ensure it's authorized by identification on
So the AKC actually comes in here and inspects it?
Petland is a large franchise. But there are lots of pet shops across the country, like independently owned La Maison des Toutous in New York. It's French for House of Puppies. And there are puppies everywhere. Again, we were told these crib-cradled pups only came from reliable, careful breeding.
Where do you guys get the dogs?
Only private breeders. So we know.
And we visited Le Chien Pet Salon in Manhattan's posh Trump Plaza. It looks like the kind of place where Zsa Zsa Gabor might have bought a dog. Puppies here sell for thousands of dollars, and the owner, Lisa Guilford, is somewhat of a celebrity in New York's social columns.
Where do you get the dogs?
Where do I get them?
Yeah, in other words.
Wonderful breeders all over the country.
Really? So these are people that you work with?
These are professional breeders.
Guilford even seemed indignant when we pressed her for details on the breeders that supply her store.
How can you tell the difference, between a good breeder and something who would be considered a puppy?
A puppy mill, the term often used for a breeding operation where breeding dogs are confined to lives in cages, where conditions can be vile and the animals incessantly bred.
How can I tell the difference? This is my business. If I can't tell that, I'm in the wrong business.
It sounds convincing. In fact, all the stores we visited said they'd never buy from puppy mills. So Dateline decided to find out exactly where many pet store puppies come from. Using hidden cameras, we got a behind-the-scenes look at what neither pet stores nor commercial breeders want you to see.
And there's something no one wants you to see. When we come back, you will see these puppy mills that Dateline was talking about. And we gotta warn you, the footage you'll see in this next segment is very disturbing, and I emphasize. Stay with us. Now we're going to take you to a puppy mill. You've seen pet stores saying that they buy from licensed breeders. Now we're going to take you to a pet mill, to where the dogs are kept in these things. And you may think it's good, but wait till you see what happens. Once again, Chris Hansen.
This is an example of a model dog breeder. Look around. Breeding dogs with lots of room to roam. There's plenty of romping, and plenty of quiet time for the moms and their pups. This breeder in the Northeast takes great care to make her puppies friendly and comfortable with people from the start. She specializes in just one breed. The mother dogs will have just a few litters throughout their lifetime, and the puppies are carefully screened for health problems. And you might be surprised to learn that almost all breeders like this won't sell to pet stores. So where do pet stores go to get their puppies? What we're about to show you are the dog breeders the pet stores told us about. USDA licensed and inspected facilities that are approved to breed dogs commercially. It's from thousands of these commercial dog breeders that most pet stores get their supply of purebred registered puppies. And while it's important to remember that many pet store puppies turn out just fine, experts warn that where and how they are bred can influence the kinds of pets they become. And it certainly affects the breeding dogs that remain behind. This is Nielsen Farms. It's been USDA licensed and inspected since 1987. It's a pretty farmhouse setting in Kansas. You can't tell there are problems until you go where customers are not allowed, around the back, where a different picture begins to emerge. PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, worked undercover here at Nielsen's for 8 weeks last spring. They provided Dateline with 60 hours of videotape.
The consumer will never see those mother dogs and the condition they're in.
Ingrid Newkirk is co-founder and president of PETA. You know, the people who run these facilities look at you as an extremist.
The law does agree with me. This is no radical position. It simply says there's a minimum standard of care. If an animal is sick, you must provide medical care or destroy the animal, but don't allow the animal to suffer. That is illegal.
But we wanted to see conditions for ourselves, so we sent in a Dateline producer with our own hidden camera. We saw cage after cage filled with dogs, which were seeing a breeding dog, not puppies, and they were everywhere. Over 500 of them, males and females of some 24 different breeds, living a life on wire. They're warehoused in cages their entire lives for just one purpose: to breed.
If you go onto some of these puppy mills at random, you are going to find violations of law.
Both our videotape and PETA's show violations and disturbing conditions. And remember, you're looking at a federally licensed facility. We saw waste piling up. There were dogs with runny, infected eyes and rotted teeth. Deformed dogs. Some were filthy. Others had bare patches of skin from a contagious infection called mange. And still others had open sores, like this Doberman. Almost every Cocker Spaniel we saw had what's called cherry eye, a hereditary disorder that must be corrected with surgery. This Jack Russell Terrier's foot was trapped in broken wire, and this toy poodle's leg was accidentally broken when it was taken from its cage. And there was this lab whose collar grew too tight, but no one had noticed until it was too late. The skin actually grew around it, and the collar had to be torn off. See, there's a collar.
Yep, that was a collar that they didn't take off.
Veterinarian Karen Overall is internationally recognized as a leading expert in animal behavior. She runs the behavior clinic at the prestigious University of Pennsylvania Animal Hospital that sees some 20,000 animals annually. She didn't mince words.
Every single one of the animals that you showed us in those videos, whether it's the wounds that they had from other fights or from burns or from abrasions, or the poor dog whose collar had to be cut off, those are all signs of neglect. And if they are ongoing, that's abuse.
The breeding dogs weren't the only thing being neglected at Nielsen Farms. he saw food infested with maggots. But perhaps most disturbing, Dateline, PETA, and former Nielsen employees we spoke with never saw the 500 breeding dogs at Nielsen Farms leave their cages. They spent their days lying on wire, most frantic for attention when a worker or stranger walked by. The few pets that were allowed to roam stood in stark contrast to others, especially those who, due to confinement, showed strange neurotic behaviors, repetitive jumping, or pacing in distinct patterns. One dog spent his days spinning so furiously, it's hard to believe the videotape you're now seeing isn't in fast forward. There were signs of aggression. Inevitably, bloody battles broke out.
Do those conditions surprise you?
No, they don't surprise me, but they horrify me.
Do you think that's typical of commercial breeding operations across the country, places commonly referred to as puppy mills?
Yeah, it appears to be. I've been to some of those places. If Dante were writing today, there would be a special circle of hell for people who do this to young, helpless animals who rely on them for their guardianship and everything else.
And Dr. Overall was adamant on how often dogs should be bred.
No reputable breeder breeds on every heat.
Yet she says puppy mills routinely breed their females as frequently as possible.
The dog is physically exhausted. The dog is unable to continue to replenish their stores to adequately supply nutrients to the next litter. And in fact, mothers who are stressed like this can't provide the right kind of antibodies to their puppies to help protect them against infectious things.
Dr. Overall says well-bred puppies need good nutrition because it has a direct impact on brain development, affecting both health and behavior. And 90% of socialization, she notes, occurs during the first few months of life. But puppies, like those at Nielsen's, start their lives here. It's hardly the homey, hand-reared experience most people picture.
They can't teach puppies to play because they don't have any place to play. They can't correct the puppies. There wasn't the rich, warm social environment that these animals need to have to become mature.
The puppies are shipped out by the time they're 8 weeks old. But the troubles may not end. In some cases, transporting the young animals to the pet shop is a cruelty in and of itself.
Was this a humane way to transport dogs?
Absolutely not.
Sharon Williams trucked puppies not for Nielsen Farms, but for another breeder called Puppy Ridge in Missouri. They breed some 200 adult dogs of their own, and they also are what's called a puppy broker, a middleman who buys puppies from various commercial breeders and sells them to pet stores all around the country. Puppy Ridge is also USDA licensed and inspected, with as many as 126 puppies, according to Williams, were transported in a single cargo van.
What were the conditions in that van when you delivered these dogs?
They were stacked in cages, and the middle ones, they didn't get nowhere. They were just in there massed together. Sick ones, healthy ones, all together.
She and her husband drove several thousand miles weekly from Missouri to deliver puppies to pet stores as far away as New York. Williams says the puppies lived in their food and waste as it sloshed about the van, even though they tried to clean as best as they could. She says weather was a problem too.
How hot did it get in the back of that van?
I put a thermometer down behind the seat, and it registered almost 120 degrees.
120 degrees?
Mm-hmm. The puppies panted, and you had to stop and water them a lot. And in the wintertime, you would have to take cages out, and whether it was snowing, sleeting, or hailing, to get to all the ones in the middle.
The still fragile puppies sometimes got sick, but Williams says her bosses wouldn't allow her to get help from a vet. So she says she had to improvise, sometimes nursing sick puppies with infant medicines she'd buy along the way. In her 15 months driving for Puppy Ridge, 4 puppies died. She was told that was much better than other drivers that came before her. Out of disgust, Williams says she and her husband finally quit. But there's something that still haunts her about Puppy Ridge. Something she says she was told by her bosses when she tried to save a dying puppy.
So you nursed this puppy
For thousands of miles.
only to get it back to Puppy Ridge?
Yes.
And you were told?
I was told while they were still breathing to throw it in the trash burner on 2 occasions.
Put a live puppy into the trash burner.
It wasn't worth messing with. It was too far gone, they would say.
Dateline went to Puppy Ridge to ask the owners about these conditions.
That's Chris Hansen. I'm with Dateline NBC.
They told us Williams is nothing more than a disgruntled ex-employee. They declined our offer of an on-camera interview and denied allegations of cruelty and problems transporting puppies. And we went back to another place where some pet store puppies are bred, Nielsen Farms.
Critics have alleged that you're running a puppy mill.
We returned to Nielsen Farms about a month after we'd been there undercover.
Sore on the back.
And we showed the owner, Amy Nielsen, a tape of what we'd found.
What do you call a puppy mill? I have a breeding operation here. I have a kennel. And that's exactly what it is. It's a kennel.
She told us conditions had improved since we'd been there.
The maggots in the food.
Well, that can happen from an oversight and you get rid of it. You won't see anything like that on those same animals right now. It's been taken care of. And I would like for you to leave.
We'd be happy
I
to
would like you.
Ms. Nielsen, we're happy to leave right now. But if the animals have improved, we'd be happy to take a look.
No, I'm not going to let you, you son of a bitch.
And just where do these puppy mill puppies wind up? Remember the pet store's promises?
Yeah, go down and check them out. Only private breeders. That's all we do. Where do I get them?
Yeah, and then
Wonderful breeders all over the country.
Wonderful breeders all over the country? Wait till you see where we found puppy mill puppies for sale and the condition some of those puppies are in.
So what types of conditions are all these puppies in? And where do they get them from? That investigation continues in just a moment. Stay with us. You've seen what can happen. Unhealthy puppies. You might be wondering, where all these come from and who's responsible for all this? As Chris Hansen continues, the answer may lie by experts.
Images of dogs in cages and overbred may disturb you. But you should know it's all perfectly legal, provided minimum requirements are met for things like cage size, cleanliness, and veterinary care. It's the USDA that enforces the law. So we tried to show the conditions we found at licensed breeders to the USDA's man in charge, veterinarian Ron DeHaven. But he didn't want to see our video.
You've elected not to look at those tapes. Why?
I'm not sure that a videotape always accurately depicts the real situation.
But do USDA inspection reports depict the real situation? For instance, this USDA report claims there was nothing wrong with this commercial breeder in Missouri, but the Missouri Humane Society found plenty wrong just a month and a half later when they raided the place in 1998. Dogs starved to death, decomposed skeletons.
We found things like no food or drinkable water in any of the pens. Explain to me how one day there could be no problems with a breeding facility, and a little over a month later, there's this.
We don't know what might have happened in the interim. Second, when you have a third party looking at it, they might be looking at things differently. That's not to say, I'm not suggesting that dead animals that aren't properly disposed of and those kinds of problems. I'm not trying to justify those.
DeHaven told us the federal government is doing a good job with what it has, 65 inspectors for the entire country, but conceded that only half of all breeders even meet the USDA's minimum standards.
I mean, I gotta tell you, we looked at some of these facilities, and the conditions that the breeding dogs are kept in don't seem to be very humane in some cases.
And certainly we find those same circumstances, I'm sure, in the course of our routine inspections. If we're not satisfied with a correction, that's when we would initiate some form of legal action. And indeed, we've done that in many instances.
But what kind of legal action? We checked, and of more than 4,000 commercial dog breeders, few have been fined or have had licenses suspended. And the USDA has only revoked some 12 licenses in the last 3 years. What about Nielsen Farms? Despite years of safety, health, and sanitation violations documented in the USDA's own records, no legal action was ever taken. And the inspector who found no problems at this facility with dead and starving dogs, he left the USDA in 1998, only to be charged in 1999 with unlawfully running his own dog business without a USDA license. The ex-inspector says he didn't need a license. He was just transporting dogs. When we visited pet stores, we heard a lot about the importance of the USDA's work. It was a big selling point.
We only buy from USDA licensed breeders.
And the other big selling point was the AKC, the American Kennel Club, the biggest name in purebred dogs and puppies.
You know, AKC is still a worldwide respected organization.
Some pet stores use that name to sell seemingly higher quality pups.
They make their inspections here. They inspect our breeders. You know, people who don't have AKC are not subject to that kind of inspection.
Hearing this, it's no wonder shoppers think AKC puppies seem more valuable than non-AKC puppies. And that may explain why we heard from numerous sources that unscrupulous breeders will sometimes phony up AKC papers to market their pups to pet stores at a higher price. Sharon Williams, who trucked puppies for the Missouri breeder Puppy Ridge, says she saw it firsthand. If a puppy she tried to deliver was rejected by a pet shop for a health problem or the way it looked, she says her boss had a simple solution.
He'd say, well, if there's another one in the van, just switch the collars.
Just switch the collars.
Meaning you take the collar that's got the AKC number and everything off of the one puppy and put it on the other puppy.
Just how easy is it to get AKC papers? Just how much scrutiny is there? We decided to see what would happen if we attempted to register a litter of non-existent puppies. We simply claimed we mated this deceased AKC Golden Retriever with this spayed one. We filled out this one-page application which says we certified all the information was true, put our check for $20 in the mail, and soon had an AKC registered litter of 8 non-existent pups. Each puppy was sent its own individual registration form. Now we had papers to register 8 ineligible puppies, or maybe even register something else. So we used 2 of these forms to register 2 real pets. $54 later, we got these gold-sealed AKC pedigrees, certifying that our pets are purebred golden retrievers. Only our animals look nothing like golden retriever puppies, because our pets are 13-year-old cats. The AKC declined our request for a taped interview and claimed that what we'd done was illegal and nothing more than a stunt. As for the AKC's gold seal, no matter what pet stores may want you to think, the AKC told us it is simply a registration, a kind of birth certificate, and cannot guarantee the health or quality of a dog. The AKC told us it's the government's job, not theirs, to inspect breeders, and it's the breeder's responsibility to be truthful when registering dogs. Even so, it says it does scrutinize applications and has 19 inspectors who every year and a half inspect breeders that have more than 7 litters per year. It does spot checks using DNA testing and will fine and revoke AKC privileges of breeders it finds breaking its rules or with inhumane conditions. But we checked AKC's published reports, and its inspections have resulted in just 7 breeder suspensions for inhumane conditions in the last 5 years. But after we told the AKC we'd made up our Dateline litter, it quickly responded, fining us $1,000 and suspending our AKC privileges. The AKC registry is big business, taking in over $26 million a year in registration fees.
Here you go.
Expert animal behaviorist Dr. Karen Overall, who receives research money from the AKC, says while the AKC works to support good breeding, she says it falls short when it comes to helping to stop puppy mills.
They'd be more than willing to sign off by giving a certificate for puppies that were part of the puppy mill situation. In other words, they've been taking the money from all those registrations, so they have a real conflict of interest here.
The AKC says it does oppose large-scale commercial breeding, doesn't champion the cause of the pet shop, but can't stop pet shops from taking advantage of the AKC name. By now, you might be wondering where these USDA-inspected AKC puppies wind up. In a moment, we'll show you.
So where all these come from? We'll show you when we come back. Stay with us. So where do all these puppies come from? You're about to find out as Chris Hansen continues this investigation.
Although the USDA says it's doing a good job inspecting breeders, and the AKC says it can only do so much, critics say commercial dog breeding conditions are often inhumane, sometimes producing troubled puppies. So you might be interested to learn exactly where these puppies wind up for sale. At least 20 different individually owned Petland franchises get some of their puppies from Puppy Ridge. And as for this Petland in Topeka, Kansas, the salesperson told us exactly where the puppies came from.
Amy Nelson's where we got these guys.
Amy Nelson's where you got these guys?
And
she's local here?
yeah, we get most of our dogs from her.
That's right, Nielsen Farms, where we saw hundreds of dogs, many with skin infections and injuries, filth, and neurotic behaviors. But you can't necessarily blame the salespeople. All they may know is what they're taught. Here's Petland's training tape.
We buy the puppy from someone we know and trust to be good at the job of raising puppies.
And they're taught that Petland just won't tolerate puppy mill.
Big customers like Petland pressure them to leave the business as soon as possible.
And Petland says their puppies are examined by veterinarians. But this veterinarian says he's seen firsthand the problems that can arise with pet store puppies.
When you talk to the people at the pet store, the dog is guaranteed.
Well, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong and do go wrong. I've seen these puppies go on when they're 3 years of age, develop epilepsy, hip dysplasia, or kneecaps that slip out that aren't going to be readily apparent in a puppy for maybe the first year or so. So the warranties that they give are, in many cases, pretty much worthless.
Dr. Don Allen is now on the board of the Companion Animal Protection Society, a nonprofit group focused on pet welfare issues. He joined us when we took our hidden cameras to 3 Petland stores in Ohio. And although Dr. Allen certainly couldn't examine every puppy, in just one day, he spotted some potentially serious problems that he says are likely linked to how the puppies were bred.
Yeah, see this guy kind of like a moth-eating appearance here?
It's not contagious, but appeared to be a hereditary form of mange.
Probably all the puppies in this litter have it.
This Chihuahua also had a hereditary problem, one that's not uncommon to the breed. But we wouldn't have known about it if we hadn't brought along our vet.
Is it called an open fontanelle?
The skull hadn't closed around the dog's brain. A bump on the head could be fatal. And where do those other pet stores get their dogs? Like that pet store that keeps its AKC puppies in baby cribs? It also bought some of its pups from Puppy Ridge. But as for high-end Lucien Pet Salon in Manhattan's Trump Plaza, when we were there undercover as customer, owner Lisa Guilford made a point of telling us how cruel she thought puppy mills were. She'd insisted she only bought from professional, good breeders.
Have you ever go visit the breeders' meeting?
No. I talked to a few experts, yes. A few that I don't have time for that.
She even bragged about one of her breeders.
You've never seen boxers, labs like her. When we get them, I said to her, Amy, wouldn't you sleep with these puppies? And she laughed. She said, no, but I give them lots of love and make sure they're really good breeding.
And one of her breeders bragged about selling puppies to Lucien.
She buys more from me than anybody. She tells me I'm her favorite breeder. I have to believe that. She does not to.
That's right. Amy Nielsen of Nielsen Farms.
When we go back, I'm going to go on there and see her and tell her you're here.
That's just what we tried to do. But when we talked to Guilford earlier this year, she turned down our offer to show her what we'd found at Nielsen Farms. She insisted Amy Nielsen is a very caring breeder. She had no problems with her puppies. But based on our phone call, Guilford said that she would no longer buy puppies from Nielsen.
The fact is here that pet stores have no other source of puppies other than puppy mills. If the three of us were to start a pet store tomorrow and sell puppies, we're only going to buy from local breeders. Well, we might have puppies this month, but we don't have 16 breeds every day of the year.
Dr. Overall of the University of Pennsylvania agrees.
Is there any way you can have this mass breeding
No.
under humane circumstances?
In my best of all worlds, pet stores would sell food. They would sell biscuits. They would not sell pets.
What you're saying, just to be clear, is that nobody should ever buy a dog from a pet store. Ever, ever, ever.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. I would never advise anybody to buy a puppy or a kitten from a pet store.
Isn't that painting all pet stores with one broad brush, though?
No, I'm not talking about the pet stores. I'm talking about where the dogs come from, and I'm talking about the developmental, social, behavioral, and medical aspects for the dog.
The Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council, the industry's trade group, declined an on-camera interview, but says pet stores are a legitimate source for puppies, and any claims that pet shop puppies have more health problems are totally unsubstantiated. There may be a few substandard breeders that the industry doesn't condone, but it says the whole industry is not bad. Petland echoed the industry council. The company declined to be interviewed, but in a letter, the president said Petland inspects its breeders and chooses them by the quality of the puppies. But only a small percentage of their puppies come from larger-scale breeders. And he says Petland stores go the extra mile, providing extensively trained staff, high-quality in-store facilities, and money-back health warranties. As for that pet store, where the puppies are kept in cribs, the owner said she's particular about her puppies and was impressed with the puppy facilities she visited at Puppy Rig. She said she wasn't aware they also have some 200 breeding dogs, but said the USDA has done a lot to clean up the breeding industry, and she'll only buy from USDA licensed breeders. And what about Bella, that sickly and not so purebred dog? Her owners say they'd never go back to a pet store. Dateline learned that the Petland in Florida, where Bella was purchased with AKC papers, got her from a large Missouri breeder, housing more than 200 breeding dogs. Petland eventually refunded her $550 purchase price, but Bella's owners have spent thousands on vet bills and face another $2,000 to $4,000 when Bella has surgery for her hereditary hip problem. What about the dogs we saw at Nielsen Farms? This fall, something happened to Nielsen's breeding dogs. They weren't rescued, and they weren't humanely put down. They were sold. Nielsen's closed up shop and auctioned off some 500 dogs and their puppies. There was no shortage of buyers.
Dog 44 has 2 teeth. Still a good proven producer, though.
Most of these dogs will continue to breed, their puppies filling pet shop windows. And they'll continue their lives in what they've always known, a wire or wooden cage.
35 on a dog's got 57 champions. $35. Sold it $25.
After a complaint was filed against Nielsen Farms by PETA, the USDA followed up with an official court complaint of its own. But we found the Nielsens are back in business, now in Arizona, with as many as 150 dogs. When we come back, what you should know before you buy a pet.
Stay with us. Say you want to buy a pet, or a purebred like a golden retriever or something. What do you do and what do you search for? Here are some suggestions with Chris Hansen.
Look. Oh, what a good boy. They're wonderful sources of excellent pet dogs.
But you still have to do your homework, say the experts, because a puppy should not be an impulse purchase.
You're just adorable.
First, pick a breed that's the right size and temperament for your lifestyle. Breed clubs, and every breed has one, can tell you everything you ever wanted to know about a particular type of dog. And Dr. Overall suggests even going to a dog show, where breeds will be lined up in a row for you to check out for yourself. But once you've narrowed down the choices, where should you go to get your puppy? Those breed clubs recommend breeders. The American Kennel Club has a breeder hotline, and you can also check with your local veterinarian. Then go visit in person. A good breeder should have just 1 or 2 breeds.
The first thing you should ask is, is it possible for me to see any of the other relatives? The father may not be on the premises, but if the pups are young, you should at least be able to see the mother. If they say things like a client did the other day, yes, but she's out in the kennel and she's not good with most humans, so I'll have to bring her out on a chain, that was a clue.
Stay away.
Stay away.
And Overall says, don't stop there.
The second thing they should ask is, could you please give me the names of some of the people with whom you've placed dogs before, and can I call them? And if they say no, walk away.
And a good breeder should give you that information.
Open this up. In fact, I've been to breeders where I didn't have to ask. I walked in and they got it all out, because a good breeder is interviewing you.
Interviewing you to make sure their puppies are going to a good home. And you really don't even have to go to a breeder if you want a purebred.
They can talk to rescue associations, animal rescue leagues, humane shelters. And those can be wonderful places to get even young animals.
In fact, we were surprised to learn that about a quarter of all dogs in animal shelters are purebred. 8 to 12 million dogs and cats enter shelters every year. Of those, 60 to 70% are euthanized for want of a home. Experts stress that you need to take time to make the best decision for you and your family, because you're about to make a 10 to 15-year commitment.
You're going to have this dog in your household for many, many, many years. You're investing in a family member.
And what a family member that you'll be invested into. But there's still more. Coming up, we're going to take you to another pet mill. This time, out in the forest. Part 2 of this investigation. Part 5 or 6 of this investigation. Stay with us. We're talking about puppy mills and what you can do if you're going to buy a dog. Now, what we heard so far was that you can go to dog shows and all, but how'd you ever want to think about going to the internet? It's exactly what's going to happen. So how's it happened for 2 weeks ago? Ever since the last one? Tonight, we're going to take you to another puppy mill where slam the gate on us. Here again, Chris Hansen.
This is where most people imagine pet store puppies are bred. Homey, hand-reared environments where dogs and puppies have room to play. But these small private breeders specialize in just 1 or 2 breeds, and they don't sell to pet stores. So where do pet stores get their puppies in all those shapes and sizes? Many times from places like this. A puppy mill, the term often used for a commercial dog breeder, where breeding dogs are confined in cages their entire lives. According to experts, careless breeding is common, and the puppies can inherit health or behavioral problems that may make them difficult pets. 2 weeks ago, we showed you Nielsen Farms in Kansas, where we saw 500 breeding dogs, many with health problems, like rampant skin infections called mange, food infested with maggots, disturbing behavior often caused by confinement. We shopped undercover and learned Nielsen Farms sold puppies to pet stores across the country, from a Petland franchise in Topeka to the most exclusive of pet shops in New York. Critics say pet stores have no choice but to buy from puppy mills if they want a variety of young puppies in their windows at any given time. After our original story, we heard from Petland's president, who called our report shamefully distorted. He said it impugned honorable people that have families and pride and dedication to the pets in their care. Petland's franchisees and pet counselors are equally repulsed by the videos on our program. And we heard from Petland stores. Hawaii told us it does not import puppies from the mainland. And Calgary, Canada told us it does not import U.S. puppies. But our investigation only looked at pet stores and breeders in the continental U.S. We also heard from veterinarians, breeders, pet lovers, and even a few former pet shop owners who applauded our reporting as thorough and accurate. So suppose you say you don't want to go to a pet store. How do you find a reputable dog breeder? Breeders advertise in just about every newspaper and pet magazine. And you may even be thinking, I know, I'll go on the internet and surf for the family pet. That's just what we did. We even found a specialty website called petsforyou.com. And right away it says we encourage buying directly from breeders. Since experts say you should always try to see at least one parent dog, we printed off this appealing ad. A picture of a well-groomed standard poodle, the litter's father. But the fact is, we had seen this dog before. It is the very same dog that was suffering from mange at Nielsen Farms. And if you think that breeding facility was bad, wait until you see this one. It also advertised puppies on the internet. It was rated by a local Tennessee Humane Society for inhumane conditions. What you're looking at are not the puppies, but the breeding dogs, surrounded by filth and waste, turning out those puppies for sale.
Some of the cages were like 2 feet off the ground.
Mary Sexton led the raid.
It was just very gross. I mean, the stench was unbelievable.
They found hundreds of breeding dogs in deplorable conditions, and they were horrified when they found a stark trailer full of dogs and their puppies.
There was puppies with their eyes shut in just mounds of wet newspaper and feces and maggots.
Sexton's colleague who shot this video was overcome with emotion.
Oh my God! Did you see this one?
And Sexton herself says she still has nightmares.
She's got bad skin disorder. You couldn't go to sleep without seeing that in your mind. I mean, you'd close your eyes, but you'd still see the animals, still see the conditions.
Breeder Pat Atkinson faced 195 counts of animal cruelty, and the Humane Society confiscated 253 dogs during its raid. That should be enough to shut anyone down. But as we continued our puppy shopping, remarkably, we found Atkinson advertising on the internet 4 months after she'd been raided. She had lots of ads, farm-raised poodles and chihuahuas, her precious little darlings. And here, she's looking for a loving family for her rare Chinese crested puppies. But we knew that Atkinson's breeding facility looked nothing like a happy family farm filled with scampering little pups. So Dateline answered one of those ads and paid a visit to the former puppy mill owner, whose dogs had been confiscated.
Hey, there.
With our hidden cameras rolling, we saw a few dogs roaming around, but there were no cages like we'd seen on the videotape of the raid. But Atkinson soon took our undercover producer on a drive about a half-mile back into the woods. In the way, she showed us some 100 breeding dogs, 20 different breeds. We purchased 2 dirty young standard poodles, and even though the American Kennel Club had revoked her purebred registration privileges 2 years before when she wouldn't let its inspector onto her property, she handed us papers from the elite AKC under another breeder's name. Obviously, not all breeders who advertise in newspapers, magazines, or on the internet are puppy mills. Some are genuinely careful, responsible breeders. But the only way to know for sure is to get references, and preferably go visit the breeder in person and see the dogs. And while you're interviewing the breeder, pay attention. Is the breeder interviewing you to find out if you're responsible and if you'll provide a good home for their carefully bred puppy? There are plenty of sources for purebred dogs and puppies. Check the internet for breed clubs all over the country that know all about their particular breed. Ask veterinarians for breeder referrals. And we were surprised to learn that about a quarter of all dogs in animal shelters are purebred. 8 to 12 million dogs and cats enter shelters every year. 60 to 70% are euthanized for want of a home. And most breeds have rescue groups that can find the type of dog you want. The dogs we purchased found good homes through a poodle rescue. The bottom line is, ask questions. That's exactly what we tried to do when we went back to the place where we bought our poodles.
Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC. Get the hell out of here, folks. Is Mrs. Atkinson here? I said get the hell out of here. Well, that's why we didn't cross the gate. We're waiting for permission, sir. You ain't got permission. Get the hell out of here.
If a breeder is hesitant to answer your questions, experts say they might be hiding something about their dogs. And remember, a puppy is not a household gift that can be returned, but a 10 to 15-year commitment. So you need to spend time researching the type of dog that meets your needs before you make it the newest member of your family.
Nielsen Farms has since closed up shop in Kansas, but we learned it's now in Arizona with some 150 dogs. And in the case of that Tennessee breeder, Pat Adkison, she was convicted on 3 of the 195 counts of animal cruelty she'd been charged with and was given a 3-year suspended sentence. She still advertises on the internet.
I waited so long to show you this report. So the bottom line here is this. If the breeder that you're looking for, you need to ask some questions. That way they know. And if they're suspended, and they don't know what you're talking about, you walk away. Never buy from a pet store. That's the bottom line. Coming up on Monday. More about spanking. This time from experts and the kids. On Wednesday, Dr. Desnick, his side of the story about eye surgery. You'll hear from experts. You hear from people who came forward telling their side of the story about the glare test, how they rigged it, etc. That's on Wednesday. That's it for Give Me a Break Sunday. That's it for Give Me a Break Saturday, going to Sunday. We will see you again for Give Me a Break Monday. For everyone here at YouTube, good night.